Talk. I'm here to just give a brief intro of IX Energy and Mr. Sunil Nagpal, who are here today with us for this uh, third session. IX Energy is a technology company which is based in New Delhi, and they are into building intelligent electric transport solutions for India as well as at a global level. The mission they have is to make India's public transport smarter through semi and full electric trucks and buses. And long-term vision of the company is to transform sustainable mobility in India. So we are very honored to have Mr. Sunil Nagpal today with us for this third session of Kaneki Tech Talk. He's currently associated with IX Energy as Chief Technology Officer. Prior to that, he was the General Manager at Tata Motors. He is highly acquainted with the technology trends in the automotive industry and has a very solid experience in the automotive domain, simulation, validation, control strategy, everything. So we are very privileged to have you today with us, Sunil. We welcome you. And before we move to the session, I would request you if you can share some or few words or thoughts with us.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about what we are doing, and really appreciate for the kind words you have just spoken about me. But I mean, life is all about learning. So the challenges are there in India on EV and hybrid space. I'm fortunate enough to be in that space, to work in that area, and looking forward to collaborating in many other ways and many people around the ecosystem to push this initiative forward.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Sunil. Harsh, I think we can begin with the,
Yes.
yeah.
Thanks again, Sunil. Again, very good morning. I'm going to dive right into the questions, if that's all right. Um, so, so one of the most interesting things is the fact that not many. So, in the Indian context, there isn't much of a take rate when it comes to hybrid offerings in general, right? There's been some really, uh, what do you call, low key, mild hybrid tech. So to see that your outfit is offering both hybrid kits as well as full electric conversion kits, could you sort of just walk us through what? Uh, I mean, by just their name, we know that one is like partially electric, the other is full electric. But from at a kit level, what sort of differences are there at a high level between the two?
Sure, sure. I think hybrid technology or EV is now very common and everybody is aware of the system. But as you said, the hybrids are not so keenly pushed by the government, and there's a full focus on EVs. But we believe that there are many vehicles, more than I think a lakh or more than a million vehicles running on road, which are still powered by diesel and CNG. And there is a scope to save fuel. And our effort is to pitch in that area, and uh, especially for applications where the fuel consumption is very high. Let me give you an example. A typical bus, which is running in the city, costs around 45 lakhs when you buy that bus. And assuming you run 220 kilometers per day with an average of 2.5 kilometer per liter, you consume almost 23-24 lakhs of worth of diesel every year. So essentially, you are putting half the cost of the bus every year just to for the fuel. And even if you're able to save 20-25% of that fuel, it's a huge saving for the fleet operators and whosoever is running the fleet. And especially after the pandemic, I think the operating costs are becoming the key challenge, and there would be a delay in putting a lot of capex into new initiatives, and we are working towards helping people who really want to save on fuel costs. And the other reason is the diesel prices in India have been going up. Even if the global prices have fallen, but still the diesel prices are very high in India, and it's been a problem. So there's twofold. I think I would say big reasons for us to be in that space and save in whatever way we can save fuel. Now, in terms of hybrid kits or electric kits, the propositions are different. I mean, the customers also would be different, and the profile of the customers, the way you use the vehicles are also different. So there are two different, I would say, two different kind of areas. But talking about hybrid kits and electric kits, the component would be similar in terms of when you take names like motor, battery, gearbox, transmission, and controls. It looks similar, but the only difference would be the ratings and the application, how to use, where to use. And it essentially boils down to what kind of architecture you propose and what kind of specifications you come out with to support that application. And I think that's there is no, I would say, fixed answer to your question, but it always depend on what kind of vehicle, tonnage, route, kilometers per day, and all those things which define the specification of the system.
Okay, fair enough. So that makes it seem like these are completely customizable then, right?
Yes, so let's say customizable means if you ask me, let's say in our current spec of the hybrid kit, we can cover a bus from 9 ton to 16 ton. So the motor spec and the battery spec is designed such a way that we can cover the entire range of those 9 ton to 16 ton bus, and we only need to define where do we package or where do we install those systems. That's the only difference. If you and those differences could come up because the way the OEMs build the buses, that's different. Let's say if you compare a Tata, Ashok Leyland, Eicher, or any other bus, the way it is assembled, the places where systems are packaged are different. So that's the only difference which we have seen, but we are agnostic to let's say the OEM. So our kit can be fitted in all kinds of vehicle because we install the system post transmission. We are not touching anything before transmission. So it's fitted between the rear axle and the output of the gearbox shaft. So that's the place we always look and try to install the system there.
Okay, makes sense. So still, but going from like making sure that again on a full electric conversion, I'm guessing that's not really it's that pretty much can be bespoke based on the application because there you're completely removing the existing powertrain. But when it comes to again these hybrid kits, I'm sure that there would need to be some sort of tuning or specific level tuning required, even though when it changes from an application to application, right, from a controls perspective, or are they still a one for all solution?
Yes, we would typically we would start with mapping of duty cycle of the vehicle. How are the events happening in the driving pattern? Let's say typically if we in a city environment, how much is the braking, how much is the acceleration? So that kind of mapping is done upfront to understand what kind of benefit we can really achieve. So we don't commit that we can prove or we can save fuel in all kinds of driving behaviors. That's not possible. But we are targeting a specific city application, and that to buses, where we have a city driving pattern and a lot of braking, a lot of acceleration. That's what we need for hybrid system to work properly. In terms of tuning, what we would have to tune compared to, let's say, if a 9-ton bus or a 16-ton bus, we have to just tune the acceleration profile and the braking profile because of the kinetic energy, which is different for different tonnage of vehicle. That's the only tuning we have to do.
Okay, makes sense. So let's say from a development cycle perspective, let's pick an example like a Tata 1512, right? Or any, I mean, I'm guessing the applications here are not just not just in the for buses, they're also for trucks, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it can be installed in trucks, but as I said earlier, the trucks, if you ply on highways, you won't be able to commit fuel saving compared to what we'll get in city. So, but if you operate a truck in city, we can definitely expect a higher fuel savings.
Because mainly the idea of saving energy is in the area of regen and stop and go traffic where there's usually major fuel consumption happens, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So okay. So from that perspective, let's say that there is a customer with a 9 meter bus for that matter. What does a development cycle look like, and what's the overall end user support, service and support that you folks provide? So there's the kit, from development to final installation and post installation. What does that cycle look like?
Okay, so I think there are many steps in this. So let me try to see if I can cover all this. But let's say as I said, we start with mapping the vehicle application and the way it's being driven. Now assume a 9 meter bus, which is used for employee transportation. Let's say from IT companies, and they travel 200 kilometers or 150 plus kilometers a day. And once we get the profile, we using our simulations, we estimate what kind of benefit we can expect out of this driving pattern. So once that is acceptable by the customer and the value proposition looks good, we go into installation. Now there is one important step here. Before we install anything, especially in a retrofit market, we have to go through a certification. That's a major, I would say, step which we have to cross, or major, I would say, milestone we have to cross. We can't install a non-certified kit on a vehicle which is used by passengers because of safety and other regulatory requirements. So that's one step which essentially takes time. But we have, as on today, we already certified our kits with the certifying agency, and we have, let's say, necessary. We'll get the approval to install on a vehicle which we have certified. So that's important step. The next step is obviously in terms of system development, the components are already developed. We don't need to spend doing, let's say, validation or the proving on the components. The components are proven, these are off-the-shelf components. The only thing which we will keep tracking is how the vehicle is being used by the customer and what's the driving behavior of the driver, because it will essentially affect and make things easier for the driver to operate the vehicle, because the launch will be much more easier, and he will have to adjust slowly along with the behavior of the vehicle. So that's the only thing we have to keep people training. In terms of support and service, we do have a telematics device on our kit. So we keep getting data from the vehicle and we keep tracking the system performance. And in case, let's say for any wrong reason, the kit doesn't perform or there are some error codes, the bus will keep functioning normally. Nobody will come to know that system is not working except for the driver will get an alarm. Apart from that, the bus function will be absolutely normal.
Okay, so the driver, there is nothing really new or additional to monitor in his daily routes.
No,
Or
he need not
driving
worry
back.
about, yeah, he need not worry about charging, battery pack, SOC, other thing. There is nothing to be worried about. He just has to switch on the hybrid system. That's one key. He has to make that on, and that's all. In case there are, let's say, obviously there will be a small infotainment or small screen where he'll get the system information, but to operate the bus, he need not worry about those parameters.
Right. Great. So just slightly more in depth, where we get to the components part, right? Or the kit itself again. Um, how much of the kits are, the tech rather is developed in-house versus, so what's the whole supply ecosystem look like there? We again, I this tends to happen in most of our episodes where there is always a question related to being Atmanirbhar, And from that perspective, what are your thoughts there?
Yes, so I think there is a roadmap to do everything within India and in-house as well. But sitting today, I think our value is in creating application and building the knowledge and writing the software how system would work. I mean, you can get a motor, a gearbox, a battery pack from anywhere, but the real value creation in is how to assemble that on a system or a bus, how to do that, where to do that, and how it will function. So all those things, that's where our value gets added. And we have a team of engineers, a dynamic team who have created, let's say, the whole control strategy, the software in-house. That's totally done in-house. We do, let's say, assemble the energy storage system in-house, and that's been a critical, let's say, a component for us. The rest of the components are made to as per drawing and through the supply chain. So it's, I mean, we are truly towards the path to become Atmanirbhar, and that's where everybody is honestly working towards, and there is nothing going to stop us from that.
Absolutely. So just I mean, from I understand that there is a vast difference from a commercial standpoint when you look at the hybrid kit versus an electric kit, right? Almost three times. And so what is the response so far, if I may ask? Like, what's the take rate been? Like, how are people more receptive to a hybrid kit because it tends to still give them, the option of filling in diesel and having that security versus maybe larger OEMs looking at and this doesn't have to be projects that are already complete. Maybe it's in the next the next 3 to 5 year pipeline sort of a thing. What's the take rate look like?
See, I think the first important, uh, I think, reason why hybrids are not being popular is the cost of the vehicle. I think the GST or the taxes are very high on hybrids. So maybe from that point of view, it's not getting that traction. But today, I think the way we are trying to target a segment which is very, very cost sensitive and consumes the maximum diesel in terms of consumption and transport maximum number of people per day. So these are essentially city bus traffic. And always these are the vehicles which are very old and maybe play a part towards reducing pollution as well. So this segment is critical. It's running in city, consumes a lot of diesel, makes a big good business case for us, and helps everyone in the ecosystem. So let's say if somebody comes to me taking a car which I drive, let's say maximum 60, 70 kilometers per day, the system may not be viable. It may not make sense upfront. But if I travel 200 kilometers per day or more than that, it's definitely going to reduce my operating cost by a huge margin. So I would say there are many aspects, not only I would say there's no single point, but it's about how many kilometers you travel, what is your diesel consumption, and what's your driving profile. Let's say if you drive between Pune and Mumbai and you say I am covering 500 kilometers per day, I will still not offer you a hybrid kit because it will not give you any benefit because there's hardly any braking. So it's a mix of many propositions which I would say with help understand which help us understand the customer requirement and vice versa. And I think to start with, we are focusing with city buses and possibly trucks driven in city. So that's our prime uh, target right now. But I think there are many players in India who are working in different vehicle segments. I think KPIT has done a long back Revolo project, which is essentially for cars. So you can see, and there are many other players for specific applications. People are doing different things.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, interesting thing is that from a hybrid standpoint, still there are even traditional passenger car vehicle application, OEMs. There are some that are still sort of strongly focused on that. So it makes sense. And I, even personally, if somebody asks me, I think I've been a strong proponent of the fact that before a full electric conversion happens, there should be a ramp up phase, or yeah, rather I would say a smoother transition towards being fully electric. And hybrids definitely do, medium hybrids for sure, definitely
Yeah.
can do that. Okay, I think there's been some questions in the chat window, and in general also. I was about to actually share my screen too, so I could look up your website, but having some trouble there. So there's this question about, what is the average turnaround time, let's say, for a hybrid kit, and an example. So hybrid versus electric kit, from a investment standpoint, right? From a commercial standpoint, what is the could you just give us an example, one example for both, from rate of returns and the timeline where tend to match up with traditional ICE applications.
Sure. So I think I'll not put a cost number or a price to what on a kit, because that's a kind of misnomer. Because if you, it's not true for hybrid, it's true for everything. Let's say even if you go and buy anything in a market and you ask for a price, they tell you X price. You'll never feel that it's lower. So we always expect a price lower than what the person is offering. So price is kind of misnomer. I think the real thing which you have to watch out is how much value or how much savings we are trying to create. Though, as I shared earlier, the fuel cost per year per bus for a city application is around 23-24 lakhs. Now, if I save 25%, it's around 45 lakhs per year. Now, assuming that is a saving per year, you can calculate yourself how much is the payback time. It's very, very short. But the important thing is, if you're not covering that much kilometers, not covering that much of mileage, it's going to extend your payback period. But for hybrid kits, especially, the payback period for us is 2 to 2.5 years, or less than that, possibly.
Yeah, I guess even if we go by the numbers of 20% reduction in or rather improvement in fuel economy, or reduction in fuel expenses for hybrids, and up to 75 or more in case of electric, I think that should definitely give people a very good idea on what are the current costs versus what they could potentially save. Definitely makes sense.
Yeah, for us, we have already certified our kits to achieve 25% fuel saving, and we have proven that during our certification process. So the reason we are getting so much of benefit is we are using ultra capacitors. Ultra capacitors have a tendency, or by nature, it can absorb and dissipate the power very, very fast. So that's the real benefit. I mean, if you take any lithium-ion battery, which is today used in EV application, that may not be able to serve their purpose because it can't absorb that much of current at that high rate. So ultra capacitors give us that advantage to absorb so much of power in a very short time and also deliver the same.
But from a storage perspective, I'm guessing that there is still going to be a pack somewhere in the system.
Definitely. I mean, there is no, I mean, we have to use, let's say, future technologies, but today cost of battery pack, let's say LTO chemistry is very good in terms of the performance, power density, and that's always on our mind that we want to use it. But today, the way the LTO is priced is slightly expensive, but we are working on making a pack ourselves so that we can reduce the cost and make system much more inexpensive.
Right. Okay. So I think you touched upon this yourself briefly a while back on the whole homologation and certification front. Have you so we know that there is an existing standard for retrofits, especially in the electrified front. But have you faced any major challenges, or how do you see that part develop? Because we usually hear this. I mean, the automotive industry tends to be less. I mean, get a little better experience compared to even others like the maritime or whatnot. But there are still challenges when it comes to these standards and regulations, and they can make or break a company. So what are your thoughts there?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think standards are, or the way they are written, maybe they will get modified eventually if we keep more vehicles, push more vehicles for validation, testing, certification, because they also will learn about that. Just to give an example, the way the standards is written, I can certify a kit separately or I can certify a kit installed on a vehicle. Both are possible. But there are other aspects on a standard. Let's say if I choose to go only to certify a kit as a standalone because I'm not dependent on the vehicle, if I go down that path that I want to certify only a kit, there are some tests which call for a kit installation on a vehicle. So we get caught up in that kind of, let's say, a challenge that we have to find a vehicle, install it, prove it, then take it off. So I would, as it's my personal experience or my personal opinion, I would say that there is a room to, I would say, improve the way standards are written, the way testings are suggested, and it'll save a lot of time, a lot of hassle for people or teams like us who want to certify and move faster. And this has been a real challenge for us. And honestly, there's a lot of learning as well. But I think there's a lot of room to improve the standards or the processes, the way they are written and the way they are interpreted. Somewhere the interpretation itself becomes a challenge, and it becomes, let's say, a task for both the parties to come to an understanding or define what's right and then move forward. But I think, as I said, it's learning for us as well, and we are trying to become more aware of what we need to do further.
Absolutely, absolutely. The thing is that even now we tend to end up having standards in most cases which are Euro versions which are barely watered down, and I do believe that there, especially from a homologation standpoint, there needs to be a lot more clarity, as well as them being developed more to suit products that are built for our conditions instead of being a version of some other standard which pretty much ends up being what we use. All right. So before we we'll address a few questions from the participants, but before we do that, just one final one from my end. What's the so of course so far trucks and buses, and and with a very clear idea or vision here that they see the most stop and go, they're the most stop and go heavy applications. There's a lot of potential fuel savings. So absolutely, a no-brainer there. But from a future standpoint, where do you go from here? Is there I mean, do you look at possibly entering other sorts of areas, or where does IX Energy go from here?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and we have built a roadmap. But I think the way we have positioned our product is agnostic to the OEM, agnostic to the emission norms, and we can still do an application or still do a conversion as far as till the ICE engines exist. So it's a long way, and we are into BS6 now, and essentially I think for next, I say 10 years at least, the ICE engine will be there. So we have a huge scope of let's say converting existing vehicles into hybrid. But let's say assuming the CAFE norms, which will be applicable from 2022 onwards, and everybody will eventually look for solutions like hybrid to reduce fuel consumption and meet the target. So I see, let's say if you today see Maruti Suzuki, Toyota, they're offering hybrid solutions. Their cars have hybrid options. So it's going to be natural for everyone, every OEM to move on that path before they fully transition to EV. So it will come, but we also have, I think, a roadmap clear for let's say, near term to focus on conversion, because millions of vehicles are still running on roads and they won't be scrapped, and they have very good life, I would say. So there is a huge opportunity for us to reduce emissions, reduce fuel consumption, and eventually the conversion to EVs is always there. So we have built a prototype today, and we have converted one vehicle, a truck, to EV. So we are testing that, and that's also of market which is available in the future. So a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities in future, definitely, and we are getting prepared for that.
Great. That's fantastic to hear. And yes, you make a good point that all the focus and news or attention tends to be on what's coming next, which is great. But there are existing vehicles, and those don't get talked about. And of course, also the need for a scrappage policy that actually makes sense and works in the real world is also something that we are all hoping to see sometime soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to switch over to some questions from the participants, and one of them is from Gaurav R, asking, wouldn't hydrogen be better technology from a cost point of view as compared to hybrid?
Okay, so I think whatever I know is that today to generate a fuel, hydrogen fuel, the cost of generating hydrogen fuel is much higher than what let's say if you want to compare with EV or diesel. Future is hydrogen, and but today the cost is very high, and sitting today, I would say it won't make economical sense to use hydrogen. But going, let's say, if you ask me 10, 12, 15 years, that's definitely be the path. That, I mean, everything will exist. EV will exist, hydrogen will exist for two reasons. Hydrogen will be used for long distance travel. Let's say if you want to travel from Mumbai to, or let's say more than 500, 600 kilometers, hydrogen fuel is the answer. Let's say, and it will also address the challenges of a lack of EV charging infrastructure. So hydrogen can address that problem. EVs will be prominent in city applications where you have a lot of infrastructure. You don't travel too many kilometers or too far. So hydrogen will exist, EV will exist going in future. But today, I think the cost of making hydrogen is very high.
Yes, absolutely. It is. That is the biggest concern. I agree. That you're, basically reconverting that twice, and the process of electrolysis tends to eat a lot of that energy. Um, okay. So the next question is, let's see. Okay. Whether India can come to the level of US or China in another decade, having a balance between hybrid and EVs, considering the energy requirement. This is from Pradeep C.
I think it's a very big question, but I honestly I don't have an answer, clear answer to what is being asked. So
So let me try and understand what the question is about. So I think he's trying to understand whether US and China, especially I would say the US. I think China's shifted to. I'll break it down. The US had a really good transition, right, from uh, ICE to mild hybrid to medium hybrid to full hybrid to EV. I think China saw something similar, except they transitioned to full EVs a lot more quickly than the US. And again, it could be the timing at which it happened. So the question here is trying to understand whether in our market are we going to see some sort of a split between hybrids and so today if you go out to buy a mass market vehicle in the US, you will see that there's at least going to be one offering that is a hybrid version of that particular offering. Something similar to that. So I'm just trying to understand how do you see the see that in the Indian context? How do things develop? Do you see that parity where we are going to have a good mix of hybrid and electrics, or do you see us, like pretty much jump to electric?
Okay. Let me see if I can answer this, but I will answer in a different way, but let me try. See, the transition to, let's say, from diesel to EVs or hybrids, we expect that somebody else will come and do it for us. Let's say we expect the government or the agencies or the OEMs will come and create solutions for us and we'll just accept it. I don't think that will work today. I mean, just to give an example, we have electric scooters available in India. We have electric cars. How many of us will go and buy today? Electric vehicle buying just one step. We need to have the confidence of that we can charge it whenever I want. I need assurance of power that I will get a power whenever I want to charge, and the vehicle will run so many kilometers before it is. I mean, I don't want to get stranded in the middle of the road. So there are many aspects of the ecosystem which will get addressed, and those are being addressed, but it will take their own time. So everyone, even the customers, have to participate in doing this transition. And I'm not sure if only the OEMs or only the government will push that we are bringing EVs, bringing BS6 or bringing whatever new technologies, it will happen automatically. Today, even after, let's say, after pandemic, today in situation, the economic conditions are not good for many of the, let's say, companies, people, fleet owners, or whatever segment you can take. Would you like to spend money, or we would like to spend money today? So there are many questions, many aspects to do a good transition from one technology to another. It's not only technology. Technology is available. Whether it's making sense, whether people are comfortable using it, that's going to be a big differentiating factor, which will decide when we transition, how we transition, what are the challenges in transition. I'll give you an example. Today, I live in a society where there's a building. It has 9 floors. The person who has a flat on 9th floor wants to buy a electric car, but he has a open parking. He doesn't have a parking slot fixed for him. Where do you think he'll put a charger? It's a serious question to be. I mean, you go to a electricity department, ask for a meter, dedicated meter. So what it comes down today is, I mean, I'm just trying to understand what would it need. I need a land. I need a power connection. I need some kind of security that it doesn't get stolen or doesn't get damaged. So it's as good as like putting an ATM. So buying a vehicle is one step, but to support that vehicle, you need so many other things to make sure that things are working. But I would say it's a challenge. People are coming with solutions. Definitely, there are there are roadmap available. There are many, I would say, opportunities there, but it will take their own time. We also have to accept as a customer to be a part of the transition and make it happen as smoothly or as quicker as possible. Because look at the compliance part. Today we say we have BS4, BS3, BS6 vehicle. And how that is being checked for compliance. We have a PUC van standing somewhere in the corner. We get a certificate and that's okay, you are compliant. But I think last 1 year it has become online. Now the tracking is much more rigorous and much more, I would say, authentic. Before that, it was just a question of getting a slip. So compliance is our responsibility. You can't say that, okay, if my vehicle is throwing a lot of black smoke, I don't care. I will not go and spend money to repair it. So I think it's a every person in the ecosystem has to play a part to do a transition. And I'm not sure if that's the right answer. That's what my broad understanding is.
I think again, from a personal standpoint, I will completely agree with that last statement. It has to be a collective approach, especially for a country with such a vast number of people. And not just the OEMs, but the owner of vehicles or even fleet companies per se. Uh, Definitely, there has to be uh, this need to want to make things better at an individual level, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm going to say that, thanks a lot, Sunil. This has been a fantastic conversation, especially from the fact that, like I was mentioning earlier, right, that we tend to focus on new technology and what's happening in the next 10 years. And that's, we did that as well. But what's the fix, or what are we doing to do what we already have, or how do we fix what we already have? So
Absolutely.
from that perspective, this hybrid and EV, the thought process behind it, and it makes complete sense, brings things into perspective. And I'm sure there are a lot of people here who definitely had a lot to take out from today's session. uh, we are definitely looking forward to what IX Energy comes up with next or in the future. And thanks a lot. A big thank you from the entire team of Gyanaki for your time and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for giving me a chance to share my views and really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Request for the last question from my side on the chat, please.
Sure, go ahead. You can just talk it, speak it out loud. That's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Sunil, I just have posted two questions